Hi everyone, it's Claire from scrappynerduk, UK, and I am first up for UK Scrap Addicts for this month. And as we do every month, we have a new theme, and this month we are concentrating on using embossing folders. Now for me, embossing folders is something that I use in my card making. I don't tend to use them so much in my scrapbooking, so this was a really good challenge to get my brain ticking over and have a think about what I could use embossing folders for. I know that I used embossing folders in a layout I made a couple of months ago for UK Scrap Addicts, so this was a great challenge for me to be able to figure out another way to use embossing folders. So I had the idea of doing backfilling a cut file with embossed cardstock. So I've had this cut file. It says memories, just backwards at the moment, and I kept the inside part of the letters, and then I cut the paper to roughly the same size to enable me to then just trim down my letters, so I could just easily backfill this cut file. And I decided, despite the fact that the cut file I have cut or has been cut in white, I did decide to go with white cardstock for my embossing as well. I wanted that white on white tone, especially because a lot of the design and pattern is going to be coming from the emboss rather than from a pattern paper. So if you're going to try this technique, then I would recommend that you stick to a solid coloured cardstock. You could change up the colours if you're going to give this a go. But yeah, stick to a solid coloured cardstock to get the best results, so you can really see the detail on the embossing. And there we have it. So I have a handful of different embossing folders. So I tried just to mix and match the patterns on the cut file, and I am so pleased with how this turned out. So I will definitely be trying this technique again, and if you are, then I do encourage you to head on over to the UK Scrap Addicts Facebook group, where we have the design team creative team put up their layouts into an album, and we do encourage you to come and join in as well. So if you want to come over and have a look at some of the inspiration that we share over there, and then I will leave a link to the Facebook group in the description box down below. So I'm going to scrap this photograph from last year, and it is quite a dark photo, but everything else on my page is very light and airy. So I'm going to make my photo really pop on this, and I'm just going to have that underneath my, I was going to say underlay, I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm going to have that underneath my cut file. Now I wanted a bit more of a title, so I'm going to call this Our Memories, and this collection here this is an older one. This is the Unforgettable collection from Cocoa Vanilla, and this has been hanging around in my stash, and I keep pulling it out and making the odd layout here and there. So it is great to get some of the older stuff used up. It's still one of my favourite collections, so I'm not too worried that it's still hanging around, because it's still beautiful. The colours in it are just gorgeous. So I picked the wood grain paper just to give me a really neutral background for me to be able to embellish on top of. And then I'm just going to go through all of my bits and bobs that I've got left. It's slim pickings on the ephemera as to what I've got left, but I did have this big floral piece, and so that is going to be the basis of my first cluster at the bottom, which is going to be underneath the cut file. So adding different bits in. Now, one of the things that I love to do to make my collections go so much further is to fussy cut elements from the pattern paper. So in this collection there was a paper that had a whole load of butterflies on, and that was still my favourite paper because I think I've had a couple of sheets of it, to be honest. I tend to fussy cut those out and use those as extra embellishments, especially when my ephemera pack is now so thin, so low on what I've got left. It really helps to bulk it out with those butterflies, and it's just a great little extra for very little for the cost of a pattern paper as well. Yes, you have got to go through the process of fussy cutting, but it's definitely worth it in the end. And it's the same with flower papers as well. If you can get a paper with a whole load of flowers on that seem to be fairly easy to fussy cut, then that is another way to be able to stretch your collection a lot further. So I think I'm fairly happy with a lot of the pieces that I've chosen, and I'm just trialling them in 3 separate spaces. So I've got that big cluster going on down the bottom, which kind of underlines the title, and then up to the top right and the top left. So I have these clear stickers, and I haven't used many of these, so I thought I would get a few included on here. And you can't massively see them on this video, but you can just see a little pop of colour. And I really like these, and these are like paint swatches. So I'm just adding those on into the sides of the clusters, just popping out from the clusters. And then I'm going to go ahead and commit and get all of this stuck down. So I have popped my cut file up onto some foam, and that's just going to give me some extra dimension, some extra shadowing behind that cut file as well. And that's one of my favourite things to do with a cut file, is to pop it up onto some foam just to give it some added dimension, so it's all not all flat on the background. And then I'm just going to tuck my photo at a little bit of an angle back in underneath that cut file there to the left. And then I'm going to make a start on adhering all of my bits and pieces down. So originally I do start with double-sided tape, and then I realised that actually if I use a little bit of wet glue, it does give me a bit of wiggle room to be able to get these pieces back in before they adhere to the background. And I'm just going to go ahead and pop this flare down. I think I've only got 1 flare left now, so which is sad. And I'm not buying any more, or even though I love the collection, I'm not going to buy another lot of it, because otherwise it will just do the rotation and stay in my stash again like it has been. So once it's gone, it's gone. So I just need to make the most of what I have left for the minute. So I think that bottom cluster is now all stuck down, and I've got a couple of butterflies at the top right to form a mini cluster, I would call it. I'm not going to put anything else in with those butterflies because they are floating, which is natural for butterflies. But if I put anything else there, I think it will just look a bit random. So I'm just going to concentrate on having 2 bigger clustered areas, and then just the balance with those butterflies up to the right as well. So using some foam and some wet glue just to add, again, different heights and different dimensions to some of those bits of ephemera. And then I decide that I do want to add another butterfly in to that left hand cluster, and again out comes that the butterfly paper ready to add another one on. And I only ever put the glue on, I kind of bend the butterfly in half and put the glue down the middle so the wings can stick up a bit. Now the wings, they will get pushed down a bit when they go into the album, but they won't be completely flat on the layout. So that's what I do with the butterflies. And then I stumbled across this branding strip, and it's only a half branding strip because they don't give full ones on the Cocoa Vanilla collections. But I didn't want this to go to waste, and I really loved the words that were on it as well. So I thought I would just trim off that extra white area, and then I'm going to add that and connect it to the edge of my page. And then I'm going to pull a little bit more of that and pop it at the top as well. And again, that wet glue is very forgiving and allows me the time to be able to move it around and get that situated before it dries. And that's where my other piece is going to go up there as well. Just trying to make a decision as to which layer I'm going to tuck it into. I don't particularly want to go and cover up all of those stickers that I've already put on, so I'm just being mindful about having little bits and pieces poking through. And I didn't want it coming off the end of the photo either, so that worked out perfectly. So next up, coming in with some more bits and pieces, so the stickers from the 6x12 sticker sheet. And I've got 2 of these, so I really need to make headway with getting some of them used. So I'm going to pop quite a few of them on here. I've got these tiny word stickers at the bottom of that sheet as well. So I'm going to include a few of those in these clusters. Just some sentiments that make sense for the photo. And then one of the final embellishments I'm going to use is enamel dots. And I'm going to pop 3 up into each cluster, 3 into each cluster. And, excuse me, you'll see that the bright pink one I've got in the top right there is hanging off the edge of the page. And I will trim that. I like the fact that it's interacting with the edge of the page. So just some strong, sharp scissors and you can cut your enamel dots. I wouldn't suggest you do it where it's not stuck to cardstock, and stupidly I should have held on to it, so I'm holding on to the enamel dot and the cardstock at the same time and then just snipping. And then the final flourish is just some white ink splatter, just to add some artsiness into it, let's call it that. And this layout is pretty much finished. So thank you very much for joining me today. If you have enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up. If you're watching on my channel, please head on over to UK Scrap Addicts. And if you're watching on UK Scrap Addicts, please head on over to my channel. And any comments, leave them in the comments section down below. See you next time. Bye.